How you doing, folks? Well, the time is upon us to deal with the wiring for this engine, as in install it into the van. Now, if you look back on a few of my previous videos, I actually did go through the wiring harness on the sitting room floor, actually, and try and make a bit of sense of it, and I did. And then I installed the wiring harness onto the engine, and I was able to actually start and run the engine, and it seemed to work all right. But the last step in this puzzle is to actually install it into the van before we install the engine. Now, a lot of people break out into a cold sweat at the mere mention of wiring. You need to kind of have a bit of a think about it, and you need to have a sort of an analytical mind and be able to piece together a few puzzles and stuff like that, you know. But to be honest with you, I kind of enjoy it. It's cleaner work, you know. I mean, and it is a bit of a puzzle, but it's kind of the sort of stuff that I don't mind too much. But you know, we all have. There's all anybody who tackles this project, they're always going to come up on aspects of it that are easier and aspects that are harder. And I'm not saying that this is necessarily easy for me, but maybe it might be a bit more difficult for others. You can get help. There are companies out there such as Ultimate Engineering who will provide you with an electrical harness. Anybody who is interested as well too. There's a guy called Porrig in Kilkenny in Ireland who also does wiring and does ECU immobilizer deletes. If you want to send me a message, I'll put you in contact with him. But in here is the wiring harness anyway, and that's what we need to install into the van. Now, yeah, it looks scary, but it's all labelled, it's all there, and we just basically need to be methodical about it, and we'll figure it out. So join me over at the van anyway, and we'll start having a look there and seeing what we're dealing with. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the junction box in the corner of the engine bay where there are two relays. That one there is the timer for the glow plugs, and this one here is for the auxiliary water pump, which would be fitted over here. I'm not entirely sure it's needed, but may as well leave it in anyway because it kind of forms part of the engine's pipework for the cooling system. Now what I've done is normally the wiring harness for the engine would go along here, and I've actually unclipped it all. You'll see there's more wiring coming down here, and that's for things like the tail lights and all that sort of stuff, so we won't be touching any of that. But what we have here is we've the wiring harness there, all labelled up, and that goes into corresponding connectors in here. Now my intention is to label them all up on the other end and actually disconnect them there. Then we're going to shorten the wires and we're going to join them up with the corresponding connectors on the new harness. I am going to put the new relays in there. There's two new relays I need to install. One is the 109 relay, which is basically the engine management relay, and the other one will be for I think it's for the brake lights. We're going to have a look at that though, because there's no connection in the ECU for the brake lights, and there should be. So we'll run the electrical harness around here and into here, which is also where the ECU is going to live there, and the air filter is going to live there. Now, if you look on the outside of the van, there's your air inlet. So that's where the engine's going to get its air from. So yeah, so basically that's what I need to do. So I'm going to start disconnecting everything here. We need to basically, you'll see there's a grommet here. Wiring goes all up in there, and be gentle, don't just pull at things, because what will happen is if you pull at things you're going to disconnect something, you don't know where it goes. So what we'll do is we will pull out the relays, and I'm going to take plenty of photos on my phone. Now this video, for the sake of this exercise, I'm actually videoing it on my phone, so it's actually your phone is a very handy tool to use for things like this. So I'm going to take plenty of photos now. Right, so what I've done is I've actually removed the junction box altogether, and you'll see that it actually is a lot simpler now. There's the connections for the tail lights and number plate light. That's the number plate light there, that one. That's a positive supply to probably the fuse panel up the front of the van, and that's fine. We'll reinstate that. We're going to be putting the junction box back in. There's various other electrical connectors as well too, right? Now we're going to reuse those electrical connectors. We're not going to just go disconnecting them for the sake of it. I mean, this is the whole wiring harness for the back of the van, and really we only need to touch the stuff that we need to touch. So we have, and that's our starter connection in as well too. That comes in on a separate wire. We'll remake that connection. It's looking fairly corroded. If the camera focuses, you'd see that. Anyway, take my word for it, it's corroded. It'll be getting a new spade terminal on it. So yeah, right, what we need to do now is we need to have a look at this. So there's the engine bay wiring harness from the van, and we need to interface it with this. So let's lay everything out on the ground first of all and start doing that. Okay, so this is looking a little less scary there now, right? So there's the wiring harness from the van, okay. The junction box and all that as well too, bearing in mind that the connectors that go into that are already in the van, okay, and we've got a nice little terminal post there for all our positives, which is brilliant, and that's all the wiring there for the engine. This is not being touched, so that's our auxiliary water pump, and then coolant level, alternator and battery supply. Okay, so they'll all be staying where they are. Now I may have to do a little bit of a job on the alternator on this. I think I have to solder in a new connector for the W, which is the tacho output signal, which is not a big problem. I'll show you how to do that. But anyway, what we have here is our glow plug fuse. Okay, so that's positive supply to the glow plugs, from the glow plugs down into the wiring and off down into the glow plugs. Okay, now everything down here is labelled. So what we're going to be able to do is we're actually going to be able to take all of this out and cut it back as far as in there and attach all these wires here. Okay, so sounds simple because it's actually not that difficult once you have it all at this point. So you'll see here, for example, we have power relay 109. That's one of the ones that we have to have a look at. So that grounds out our relay windings. Ignition positive from key switch, that will be our fuel cut-off solenoid. Engine management light, I'm not even sure if I'm going to use. Switch positive, which is the relay 109 output. Okay, so that's fine, and I actually have relay 109, so we're going to have to wire that in. Not a major problem. And then yeah, we've a tacho signal, again, don't think I'm going to use. Coolant temperature, high oil pressure light, and yeah. So basically, let's start taking out the superfluous wiring here and get all this sorted out. Well, I think it's fair to say that looks a lot less terrifying now. It's all wrapped up in the proper Tessa tape. Any of the extra wiring that I'm not going to use has been removed now. There's still a couple of things. This bundle of wires here was unlabelled and I couldn't find out exactly what they do, so I've left them in for the moment. And there's that lad there as well too, which I think might be a ground, so I've left that there, and we'll address that when it's actually all connected up inside the van. And then over here, there you have your ECU connector and the diagnostic port. There's all the connectors for the engine. The old wiring harness connections from the junction box, which I'm going to piggyback off, so the signals are still going to the place they used to go to, as well as to the ECU. And over there's a few more things. There's a couple of annoying issues I have to take care of. That wire there, it's wrapped in grey insulation tape. That's the throttle position sensor wire. Now the throttle position sensor will be over here, and that wire is just not long enough. So I have two choices. I could either lengthen that wire or relocate the throttle position sensor. I'm thinking I'll relocate the throttle position sensor, simply because of the fact that a lot of people have been saying that it's not a great idea having it on the engine. It's not designed to deal with vibrations. And that being the case, I want to get it out of the way. Now it'll obviously have to be in reach of the accelerator cable, but I'm thinking it might fit somewhere nicely on the forward bulkhead of the engine bay. But yeah, so basically, if you can imagine the shape of the wiring harness now, ECU, junction box, it follows right the way around to the battery over here, and then somewhere in the middle will be that engine there as well too, and that will all connect in. Now that wiring there is the van wiring that's going to plug back into the wiring for the van, and yeah, I even have my 109 relay in as well too. I didn't actually show you that. That's in there. Now I will try and figure out something a little bit tidier to do with that. Hopefully it'll actually just fit there, and well, it'll stay there comfortably and I won't actually have to do anything else with it. But yeah, I'm happy, to be honest with you. I think what we need to do now is just try and offer it up in the van and see how it all fits. And yeah, then after that, it's kind of a case of getting into fitting the engine. There is one other annoying job I have to do as well too on the engine. I'll just show you quickly. Yeah, the garage is a disaster, to be honest with you. I've been kind of just doing bits and pieces here and there and just throwing my tools in afterwards. That's on the wrong side. Has to be swapped over. See down there. So that's an annoying issue. But I'll do it. I'll get that done. I might even do it this evening. So obviously it has to be done before the engine's fitted. Okay, so everything is loosely positioned here now anyway. I even just stuck the lid back on the junction box loosely enough there as well. I know it still looks like a bit of a disaster, but trust me, when the engine's in and I've it all properly wrapped up, that's going to look a lot better. So we have the wiring for the engine down there, which is still too long, to be honest. It's going to have to be wrapped up. I mean, it's better, but it's not perfect. We can figure that out afterwards. ECU is sitting over there. It's just placed there at the moment. It's not actually screwed down or anything, but that's where it will be going. And yeah, the junction box is fairly well stuffed. In fairness, that's the way it was before. So the only difference is there's a relay in there and a couple of extra connections. So that's fair enough. There's a connection for our auxiliary water pump. I'm not sure if I'm going to fit it or not yet. I'm still in two minds about that. And stuck the connection back onto the low coolant level sensor. That cable down there can go because that's for the cold start lever. So I actually could take that out. I will take it out at some stage. Probably when I'm doing the gear shift mechanism. And when I say doing the gear shift mechanism, it just makes me think I still have loads to do in this job. It's this is not for the faint-hearted, this job. This is 5 spanner rating, and I'm one of those bloody spanners, to be honest with you, for taking it on. So anyway, look at this point in time, I'll give the lens a little wipe. I am going to go inside and I'm going to have a cup of coffee and a bit of dinner, and I'm going to leave it at that for the day, because I think I've actually accomplished quite a lot. The wiring harness is one of those things that has been hanging over me, yeah, there's a few little jobs left to do on the engine still, just kind of arranging things the way they're supposed to be for installation into the van, and then we'll install the engine and we'll start worrying about doing the likes of the gear shift mechanism, which is a whole other ball game. Yeah, look, I think we'll leave it there, but thanks very much for watching, and I will see you in a future video. For those interested, by the way, these are the solder sleeves that I used to make any joins in the wiring. You heat them with a heat gun and they shrink, the glue melts and the solder melts, and they make a really good connection. And then that's the tested tape that you can get for doing wiring harnesses. That one roll actually managed to do all of it. I actually bought 3 rolls thinking that wouldn't go very far, but there's actually a lot more material on that than you would think. So yeah, there you go.